Hey, what's up? This is Dan Donegan from Disturbed, and you are watching Loudwire.
Hey everyone, Graham from Loudwire here at the Sonic Temple Festival with Mr. Dan Donegan of Disturbed. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, sir.
Very much appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, what we're going to do today is Wikipedia Fact or Fiction. I did this once with David. He was great. But this one's more about you and about Disturbed as a whole. So I got some Wikipedia stuff today.
All right.
Printed it out. You can tell me if it's true or false and elaborate if you'd be so kind.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Here we go.
First off, I always have to check. Daniel Joseph Donegan, born in Oak Lawn, Illinois.
Simple enough, yes.
That is true. Okay,
That
they
is
do
true.
get that wrong sometimes.
Yep.
It says on Wikipedia that you began playing guitar as a teenager and your first band was called The Vandal.
I mean, I guess Vanda was my first legit band to where we
Okay.
actually played gigs. So
Gotcha.
I guess it's that part of it makes it a little bit true. But my first band, I think we had different names. Every week we changed the name. It was like Destroyer one week
Okay.
and Vengeance
Kiss.
the next and stuff like that. So, but I guess my first legit real band of playing shows was probably actually called Apparition.
Okay.
That was my first one that we played out. But Vanda was a little bit more established, so that was kind of starting to play the club scene, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. Was Destroyer a Kiss reference?
I was definitely a big Kiss fan as a kid, so I'm sure it had a little bit of influence on it.
You got a job with your father doing construction work when you were young. You were required to cut your hair for it, but instead you opted to wear a wig to fool your dad.
This is true.
This is
and
true.
and not just my dad, the whole company.
Nobody wanted long hair.
I came from a very strict Catholic family. I went to all-boy Catholic high school, and my dad's very strict, old-fashioned, did not like the long hair, and I couldn't have it in school because you know, I was going to school wearing a tie, all-boy Catholic school, and couldn't do that. As soon as I graduated, I grew my hair really long, and I was in my band, and you know, he offered me a job, but he's the one that didn't like the long hair. So he said, in order for me
He's the boss.
right. So and some of the other bosses at the company and the owners weren't big fans of it.
Sure.
So I thought my best solution to get what I wanted was to buy a short-haired wig and hide my long hair under it, and I somehow pulled it off for like 4 years. I don't know how.
4
it was-
years you did construction.
It was
wearing a
it was a
wig.
nightmare, and I mean it looked terrible.
Nobody could tell.
It looked terrible. I mean, they couldn't tell because I always put either a baseball hat on or a bandana or something to cover most of it. And you know, so once my dad figured it out after a long period of time that I fooled him, then he realized my commitment to my music and my band and everything, and he had to kind of laugh that he realized that I fooled him for that so long. And the entire company, nobody had a clue that my hair was. I mean, it was like, you know, almost down to my waist at that point. You know,
my
real
God,
hair.
wow.
So it was kind of funny. We look back at it and laugh at it now. I actually have old pictures of me at like, you know, Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm there wearing a short hair wig, fooling everybody.
Oh my God. Will you send me one of those photos?
It's pretty frightening, man.
Okay.
I can maybe show it to you. I don't know if I can give you it.
We'll see. It said that it was the Illinois Entertainer in which David Draiman answered the ad after going to 20 other auditions that month.
I'm not sure how many auditions he went through. We went through the painful process of having to seek out the unknown
Sure.
out there. And after we went through our circle of neighborhood friends of guys who we knew, and nobody was really quite cutting it. You know, we had another singer for about a year, and he couldn't get his act together. And you know, he didn't really have his own identity either. And we wanted to find somebody that had his own voice, or trying to find his own voice. So when David finally came through the door, it was a breath of fresh air because it was something unique about his voice. And he didn't really quite know stylistically. He'd never sang with a band like stylistically like us. So he was still trying to figure out how he was saying, but he sounded like him. He wasn't trying to emulate somebody else. And with all the other singers that we had come in, you know, we'd have to play cover songs to hear them sing.
Yeah.
And David was the only one that's like, hey, why don't you just play one of your original ideas and I'll just improvise and let's just, just wing it. And I thought that was pretty impressive that he was willing to just jump into writing right away. And so I just started playing a riff that I had and was working on, and he just started listening to it. And about a minute into it, he just starts coming out with this, just kind of scatting over it,
Sure.
but very melodic and very rhythmic. And it stuck. It was enough for me to go home that night and still remember the melody without there being real words to it.
Wow.
So it left a big impression.
It says that before joining Marilyn Manson's 2001 European tour, bassist Steve K. Mack was unable to play due to a shattered ankle because he fell off a fire escape outside your rehearsal hall in Chicago.
Yes. And he didn't just fall. The thing collapsed. It came off the side of the building. And he fell a couple stories, and he shattered his heel. And, he's lucky. It could have been pretty fatal.
Did you see it happen?
I seen it happen. And the whole fire escape, like I said, it just came detached from the building. And he jumped and leaped out probably a couple stories high. And he cleared himself from getting hit from it landing on him.
The guy. It says he's the embodiment of Archangel the Destroyer. He also seems to have dark magic around his face. At one point, he was considered or called Spirit of Vengeance. Is any of that true?
I've never heard anything.
Never heard anything like that. Okay.
I've never heard any of that. But I mean that kind of that logo just came about one time when David was sitting with this friend of his in front of the computer and trying to come up with some kind of logo to identify the band with. And David just kind of made a goofy grin similar to that, and the guy just kind of distorted this face on the computer. And before we knew it, it just kind of took off as a trademark. Even before we got signed, we seen fans locally getting that tattooed on them, and we didn't even have a record deal. We didn't even have our demo finished yet, but we were building a following, and it was kind of strange that it was taking off in such a big way for us that our following was so confident and so supportive of us that they were getting the guy tattooed on them when we were just a local band.
Indestructible. The band originally wanted to call the record The Night. The record had a song whose working title was Defend, but it was eventually retitled to Indestructible.
I don't recall if we were going to call it The Night. I mean, it's probably true because that was the first song that I think we wrote where I had the music for it, and David had wrote the melody for it. And I remember the excitement the second that he was improvising an idea on top of the music I presented to him. So I'm sure in that excitement we thought right away maybe we call the album The Night because that was the first song we wrote with it. As far as the song Indestructible, it was first, the working title was called Defend. And when we were in the studio making the album, we kind of reworked it too. I thought that we had a discussion. I thought it could be a little bit more stronger. We kind of reworked the melody a little bit more. It was a little bit more anthemic and in your face, as opposed to the original melody was. I think it was maybe too melodic, maybe sung too pretty.
It says that the rough song idea for A Reason to Fight was initially proposed by yourself.
It's kind of funny because the music for it I was playing for a long time at my house. I have a guitar sitting next to my bed forever, and every day I would just pick it up and noodle around, and I was playing that part on my guitar for A Reason to Fight, and my daughter would come up and she'd say, "Are you ever going to do anything with that? You play that over and over every day." I'm like, I'm not quite ready to present it to the guys yet. I had some missing pieces. And then I kind of, as we were in the studio recording the Evolution album, there was a little bit of downtime. I think our producer was setting up microphones on the drum kit, and I was in the control room. I just picked up the acoustic guitar and started playing the intro part of that. And David heard it, and he's like, "Wait a second, keep playing that for a second." And so it just kind of was a happy accident that it was the right time of just that downtime moment to where we pursued it to try to make it a priority. And message-wise, I had talked to David earlier. When we start writing, we always discuss, hey, is there any subject matter we want to touch on this time around? And so I said to him early on, too, that I wanted to really try to touch on depression and addiction. We've all had family members or close people to us that have had their battles and their struggles, and a lot of friends and a lot of celebrities and rock star, peers that have fallen prey to the disease of addiction and depression. And even before all that, it was on a more personal note. It was something that my brother had struggled with quite a bit for many years, and he still fights that battle. But and that's the whole point. We wanted to write something that was going to send a positive message to don't give up the fight and realize they're not alone. It's nothing to be ashamed of, And luckily, once I brought in the music piece for it and David started writing the melody, it just seemed to go hand in hand with it, and we really kind of hit it out of the park with that one.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you writing about that kind of thing. It means a lot to a lot of people, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The new album, if you haven't gotten it already, is Evolution, Mr. Dan Donegan of Disturbed.